So you would have Arabs in your government?
I think not. I think it's too premature.
I mean, to British ears, that might sound racist. Why not have Arabs in your government? They're Israeli Arabs, they're Israeli citizens, they can play a role.
These are two very different things.
Israeli opposition leader Mr. Lapid, or as I like to call him, Mr. Lapipi, is no better than Netanyahu in any way, shape or form. He was on Sky News saying the same garbage we've been hearing over the last 2 years. When he was showed pictures of the devastation in Gaza, his response was, "This is what war looks like." He needs to get his eyes, ears and possibly everything else checked, because the last time I looked, war doesn't involve killing an entire state filled with innocent men, women and children. Anyway, let's take a look.
I think people need to remember, this started on October 7th when we were massacred, the worst massacre against Jews since the World War II, since the Holocaust. And we didn't want this war. We were engaged in this war because we were protecting ourselves and because we had to get rid of Hamas, otherwise it will happen to us again. This is what war looks like. And when you look at the war, you have to ask yourself who started this war, why they started this war, was it necessary? And the answer, of course, is no.
Sure, but I mean, the death toll, 20,000 children over 23 months, as one UN spokesman put it to me the other day. That's a classroom a day of children dying. You said the IDF behaved honourably. Do you still stand by that, given that kind of death toll?
I think people need to understand, this they know, that war is horrible everywhere. It was horrible when the British were in Mosul. It was horrible. I mean, war is horrible. And people need to understand this is a war that the terms of engagement were set by Hamas. And what we see here is the result of the brutality of Hamas, not only towards Israelis, but also towards their own people. So this is what you see. And the fact that people were trying not to understand this, to me, was not as shocking, but almost as shocking as the pictures themselves.
What do you think the damage to Israel's image has been? Because you're a media man before you were a politician. Mm-hmm. How much of a dent has Israel's standing taken in the world after this war, do you think? Quite
a bit. And of course, the current government didn't help. I mean, when ministers are saying things like we have to nuke Gaza, so we know them and we know they account for nothing, but people abroad does not. And a lot of demons were awakened. I mean, I was watching, from back home, all those marches in Trafalgar Square and Whitehall and elsewhere, and I was thinking, how come they never marched when the children were dying in Sudan? Sudan is a much greater tragedy than Gaza. 3.6 million children in the risk of starvation, and nobody's marching. Sure, when the kids were dying, there was almost 10 times people who died in Ethiopia in the same time. And nobody said anything. Why is it? Because the Jews were not involved. It may not be fair, but the perception out there, the consensus amongst many people, particularly the young, is that Israel is engaged in a genocide. Can Israel, whether that's right or wrong, can Israel recover from that, do you think? Well, isn't it important if it is right or wrong? I think it's important. It is wrong. This was not a genocide. This was a horrible war in a very dense populated area. And by the way, it was examined, it was not genocide. And the fact that people are getting their educations through TikTok doesn't make them right. It just makes them ignorant. Well, the ICJ is still deciding whether it's going to be a genocide or not. What we had here is unprovoked attack on Israel, and then Israel fighting a horrible terror organization. But the truth is the jury's still out on whether it was a genocide, certainly in the ICJ. But in the last 3 minutes, you have said the word genocide 6 times. Even though you're doing the right thing, meaning asking the journalistic questions, the word is now in between us on this desk, and this is what people are gathering from it. This is just wrong. We were trying to protect our lives. I'm no representative of the government. I'm the leader of the opposition. I disagree with a lot of things they've done in the last 2 years, but this is not genocide.
He says this started on October the 7th. No, it did not. It started when Zionist terrorist organization took over Palestine and displaced over 1 million Palestinians. He says this is the worst massacre against the Jews since World War II. If we're making comparisons to justify our actions, then there is no comparison between 1,200 people dead and well over 100,000 Palestinians. He says he did not want this war, but isn't this exactly what the Greater Israel goal was all about? He says we were engaged in this war because we were protecting ourselves. How? When you killed hundreds of your own people when you called the Hannibal Directive. His response to 20,000 children dead was, war is horrible. The only way you kill 20,000 children, you sick, vile man, is by deliberately targeting areas with children. You can blame Hamas all you want, but it was a Hamas who killed 100,000 people and destroyed an entire state. One of the groups you could form a government with, possibly, are the Arab parties, the Israeli Arab parties. Now, you have ruled that out. You said in the wake of October 7th you wouldn't have Arabs in your government. Do you still stand by that?
It was interesting. I said that what we have to do is to form a Zionistic government in order to start the repair of Israel. And then everybody said, whoa, hey, are you boycotting Mansour Abbas, who was my former colleague? And then they interviewed him. He's an Arab. And he said, I totally agree. I think the Israeli society now needs to start the repair and the healing process without us, and then we might be able to join in later on.
So you would have Arabs in your government?
I think not. I think it's too premature.
I mean, to British ears, that might sound racist. Why not have Arabs in your government? They're Israeli Arabs, they're Israeli citizens, they can play a role.
These are two very different things. This is 20% of the society of Israel, and they deserve rights, and they deserve being taken care of, and they deserve much better standard of dealing with the issues that troubles them as a group. But, when you form a government, not everybody's going in. You ask me who I want to form the government with. I want to form the government with 3 or 4 other parties that are now the main target of the next coalition.
And one man you could go into government with is Naftali Bennett, of course, who's on the right wing of Israeli politics. Now, you're forcing a vote, or not forcing a vote, you're pushing the vote in the Knesset next week on the 20-point Trump plan.
Yeah.
And part of that, envisages a credible pathway towards a Palestinian state, which you favour a 2-state solution. Naftali Bennett has said the idea of forming a Palestinian state in Israel has reached a dead end. Never in the history of the Jewish people has so much energy been invested in something so pointless. We should put the idea behind us. Does that make it impossible, really, for you to sit in the government with him? It's such a key issue, right?
No, it is a key issue. It's not the only issue. I think right now, you might think it's tragic, you might think it's not, but it's not right now in the table for the next 3, 4, 5 years. What is on the table for the next 3, 4, 5 years is rehabilitating the Israeli society. And this we've done together before, and we can do together in the future and for a better future of the country. We've been this weird duo for quite a long time now, and we are capable of working out a government. And this government, now, the thing about the 20 points plan, we need to put this on Knesset's table in order for the world to see, and the Americans to see, and the American president to see, that the entire Knesset, opposition, coalition alike, are cheering for the effort, for the fact that they have returned the hostages that we almost despair of. And I'm calling upon Prime Minister Netanyahu to bring the entire coalition into this vote, even as a token for our appreciation for what President Trump has done for us.
It's funny the amount of time you hear that Israel is a democracy when literally you have the leader of the opposition stating he would not have any Arabs in his party. When called racist, he makes a distinction between Israelis and Arabs. By this logic, he's indirectly saying, and something we've always known, that they are second-class citizens. He says the Arabs only make up 20% of the population. Isn't a party meant to represent all its people? How do you expect Arab Israelis to vote for a party that's clearly racist and clearly wants no part or involvement from the Arab people? Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Support me by liking and subscribing, and I'll see you all on the next video. Peace out.